I think one of the things that I see is people just assume that regardless of which, industry or type of software company that you're working with, that those buyers use the same channels and consume information in the same way and live in the same places. And you can't assume that. So as you're advising these different startups, like, are you working with them to kind of figure out where their buyers are before you just start throwing shit at the wall and hoping it sticks?
Yeah, I think honestly, one of the two biggest areas I spend time on early on is like, how are you talking about the product? And is it like, does it make sense? Right. Cause I think a lot of times like people get like these ideas and there's such internal speak to it where it's like, we're the platform that does X, Y, and Z. And it's like, what does that mean? Like, I don't know what that means. And so, um, a lot, and like if I don't know what it means, like your buyer who's like a landscaper runs a salon definitely doesn't know what
Absolutely
it means.
not.
So
Yeah.
like, I gave the example the other day. Someone was talking to about like selling into the medical community and stuff, and I was like, my wife's an ER nurse. If I asked her, does she use software at work? She would say no. She uses it, but she would be like, well, I have to use my computer. Like she doesn't even realize that there's software powering all the stuff that she's doing because it's not her language. Like, you know what I mean? Like she's not installing it. She's not doing anything with it. She just opens up the computer and it's there. It enters her notes in.
I
And
just had a Zoolander thought of the files are in the computer.
yeah, exactly. But like, I think like people write in ways that are like super like SaaS oriented. And like, I think that's a big problem to begin with. And so I think just understanding like what would actually resonate if you were that buyer. And that goes a long way to understanding the buyer. And then I think the other thing I always ask are like, what are the types of calls you're having what are the questions you're getting? And understanding like, what are they asking for? And then other people who are using the product, like, what do they say is the number one thing you're solving for them? Like sometimes, like, I think what people think they're solving for is not actually the thing you're solving for. Uh, and so I think understanding that of like how people are using the platform and the problems you truly solve really comes just like conversations, right? With customers and prospects and stuff like that. And I know everyone loves to say like, talk to your customers and stuff, but I don't think many people actually do. The problem.
I could not agree more. I think it's one of those things that you see in the LinkedIn echo chamber, and it's just like, oh, talk to your customers, yada, yada, yada. Um, when we went through this at Metadata, when we were redoing our messaging originally, like a year and a half ago, I thought I knew everything that needed to be said on the site. And I went to you were looking at it at the time
Yep.
in our cab and a few others. If I would have just started writing copy on the site, assuming everything that I knew was right, like we would have missed the mark completely. And you don't realize that until you actually get out there and talk to customers.
Yep.
It's like basic marketing at the end of the day, yet no one actually does it.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And I think the other thing is like, no one takes the time to look at like, what the competition is doing as well. Cause you talked about like where to find these people. A lot of it you can just honestly figure out by like who's ahead of you. Cause most markets, like you're usually not the first one into that space. And so for a lot of like companies, it's like, okay, there's 100 companies already in the space and we're going to do it differently. It's like, yeah, but not in the eyes of the customer, like not yet. So you have no distinguishing characteristics yet. So like, let's figure out where are they seeing success and like, where are they having, channels that are working for them? Like weird. Everyone has a 40-person outbound team. Maybe that's the way they're being able to do it. Then it's like, okay, the channels that most of these companies are operating, if they're seeing efficiency and growth through, then it's like, how do we do it differently? How do we do a playbook that runs a little, feels different and stuff like that? But I think a lot of times, companies start off with this idea that like, we're going to be so different than everything else that's out there. And the reality is like, most people don't want different. They want what they have now.